Welcome back to video lecture 4C, in which we will explore the last three personality disorders found in the C cluster. So far, we have examined the cluster A personality disorders, which tended to focus on behavior that can be characterized as odd or eccentric. We then looked to the B cluster personality disorders, which tended to focus on behavior that can be characterized as overly dramatic, emotional, erratic, and self-centered. The C cluster of personality disorders includes the avoidant, dependent, and obsessive-compulsive types. Although the features of each of these three disorders vary, they share a common feature of fear and anxiety. The first personality disorder in the C cluster is the avoidant personality disorder. Individuals with this disorder are characterized by avoidance of social relationships due to fears of rejection and criticism. Fear of rejection prevents individuals with avoidant personality disorder from entering into a relationship unless they are reassured that their acceptance is virtually guaranteed by the other person. As a result, they tend to have few relationships outside of their immediate families. They will also tend to avoid group activities such as teamwork at a job or recreational activity involving groups. In a work setting, they will prefer to eat lunch alone at their desk or in a private place, rather than in a group setting like a cafeteria or a lunchroom. Avoidant personality disorder tends to affect approximately 2 to 3% of the general population and is equally common across gender. Avoidant personality disorder and schizoid personality disorder, which we saw in cluster A, share a common feature of social withdrawal. However, they differ in that individuals with avoidant personality disorder are interested in relationships and feel warm towards others. They are simply afraid to pursue the relationship for fear of rejection. There is evidence that avoidant personality disorder may be related to social anxiety disorder, which we will explore next week as we turn our attention to anxiety disorders in Module 5. It is possible that avoidant personality disorder may be a more severe form of social anxiety disorder and not a distinct diagnosis at all. Researchers are currently exploring this possibility. The slide provides the current criteria for diagnosis of avoidant personality disorder according to the DSM-5. Diagnosis requires the demonstration of a pervasive pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and fear of being judged negatively, beginning in early adulthood and demonstrated through at least 4 of the 7 listed indicators. The second disorder in the C cluster of personality disorders is the dependent personality disorder. This disorder is characterized by difficulties making independent decisions and by overly dependent behavior. This is exhibited as an excessive need to be taken care of by others and behavior that is overly submissive and clinging in their relationships and extremely fearful of separation. Individuals with dependent personality disorder have great difficulty making decisions on their own and seek advice or permission for the smallest decisions. They tend to rely on others in their lives to make decisions and avoid situations where they would need to take responsibility. In the workplace, they turn down challenges and promotions and work beneath their potential. At home, they tend to live with someone who makes the decisions for them. These individuals will often subordinate their wants and needs to those of others and agree with anything in order to avoid rejection. They also tend to be overly sensitive to criticism and are preoccupied with fears of rejection and abandonment. Dependent personality disorder has also been linked to other psychological disorders such as major depression, bipolar disorder, and social anxiety disorder, and also to physical problems such as hypertension, gastrointestinal orders such as ulcers, and colitis. It is important to consider the behavior that appears to align with this disorder through both a cultural and a social lens. This disorder is disproportionately diagnosed in women rather than in men. In societies where the roles of women are defined through submission and they are under greater social pressure to take on a passive role, dependent behavior may be reflective of these social or cultural influences rather than an underlying personality disorder at all. This slide provides the criteria for diagnosis of dependent personality disorder from the DSM-5. It includes a pervasive or excessive need to be taken care of, which leads to clinging behavior and fears of separation, beginning in early adulthood and demonstrated through at least 5 of the 8 listed criteria. The final personality disorder in the C cluster is obsessive compulsive personality disorder, or for short, OCPD. This disorder is characterized by a rigid way of relating to others, perfectionist tendencies, lack of spontaneity, and an excessive attention to detail. Individuals with this disorder experience difficulty completing things in a timely manner because of preoccupation with perfection. When their work falls short of their expectations, they will start over again, and they will ruminate about how to prioritize their assignments and never seem to get started with the work. Their zeal for work will often keep them from participating in or enjoying social or leisure activities. Their social relationships can also be impaired by their rigidity as they insist on doing things their way without compromising. OCPD should not be confused with OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a mood disorder in the class of anxiety disorders that we will look at next week in Module 5. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder differs from OCD, the anxiety disorder, in that it is not an experience of outward obsessions and compulsions. Rather, it is an experience of an obsessive personality style that can develop to an extreme where it is a diagnosable disorder. After completing this video lecture, you will find the link displayed on this slide available to you on Blackboard immediately under this lecture. It is a short clip from the popular sitcom Friends, in which it demonstrates a real-life example of OCPD in the character of Monica. Take a few minutes to get a better perspective of what OCPD might look like in someone's life. The slide provides the criteria for the diagnosis of OCPD from the DSM-5. We can see again that it includes a pervasive pattern of preoccupation with orderliness, perfectionism, and mental and interpersonal control at the expense of flexibility, openness, and efficiency, beginning in early adulthood and present in a variety of different contexts, including at least 4 of the 8 listed here. This slide provides an opportunity to view 2 case studies side by side to determine which would be diagnosed with OCPD and which is reflective of normal variations in a person's personality. Pause the video here long enough to read through both of them. You can also find these on page 229 of your textbook. In a moment, I will reveal the correct responses. That takes us to the end of our C cluster of personality disorders. In addition to the 10 disorders in the A, B, and C clusters, there is a final possibility for the diagnosis of a personality disorder. This is called PDNOS, which is an acronym for personality disorder, not otherwise specified. PDNOS is actually the most common diagnosis because of inherent difficulties with separating characteristics of the various personality disorder traits. Clinicians can identify a personality disorder in a patient, but figuring out the details of the condition can be difficult. It is frequent that we will see an individual with traits from several disorders within a cluster because each personality disorder within the cluster can share a common central trait. It is possible, for example, to have an individual that has characteristics of an antisocial and a narcissistic personality disorder. It is less common for an individual to have traits from personality disorders across clusters, as they tend to be more significantly different from one another. Traits that are used to diagnose personality disorders involve the same traits that are commonly inherent in normal personalities, but to a lesser degree. Feeling suspicious now and then does not mean that you have a paranoid personality disorder. A tendency to exaggerate your own importance does not mean you are narcissistic. You may avoid social interactions for fear of embarrassment or rejection without having an avoidant personality disorder. You may have perfectionist tendencies and be very careful in your work without having an obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. It is important that these diagnostic labels are applied only in circumstances when the patterns are so pervasive that they interfere with the individual's functioning or cause significant personal distress. Remember the continuum from the first video lecture? It is on this slide again to remind us that all mental disorders are on a continuum, and we may all experience symptoms and features from any category of mental health at various times in our lives. The trick is to know when the characteristics have progressed far enough down the continuum to cause the interference within our lives or distress. Just a quick review as we end video lecture C. There are 3 clusters of personality disorders that each represent a group of 3 or 4 disorders with a common core of features. The A cluster is represented by odd or eccentric behavior, the B cluster by overly dramatic, emotional, and erratic behavior, and the C cluster with anxious or fearful behaviors. Individuals with personality disorders are egosyntonic, which means they are unaware that there is a problem and they embrace their behavioral abnormalities as part of their natural personality, rather than finding them disturbing. When a person becomes aware that their personality characteristics constitute a problem and they need help to make change, they become egodystonic, meaning that they are now aware of the problem and the distress being caused by the symptoms. Okay, that's the end of video lecture C. Please remember to take a few moments to watch the short clip from the sitcom Friends to see a real-life example of what OCPD might look like through the character of Monica. Bye for now. See you soon in video lecture D as we begin our investigation into the perspectives and treatment options that help us understand and support individuals diagnosed with personality disorders.